The life of a motorcycle rider is like a long and windy road. With ups and downs, you take the rough with the smooth, and there's normally a few detours along the way. But wherever your life takes you and whatever motorbikes you ride during your time, your journey has to start somewhere. And this is where adventure starts. Now, believe it or not, the prospect of riding KTM's 390 Adventure was something I have been really looking forward to. Not because I thought it would be the best bike I'd ever ridden, but at the thought of rekindling the feelings I had when I started riding, the promise of fun, freedom, and real adventure on the horizon. To say the bike delivered against that expectation is an understatement. I absolutely loved it, and let me explain why. Lightweight and capable adventure bikes are really where it's at in my opinion, but the 390 is more than the sum of its ingredients. It's a fantastic and complete package. The 390 Adventure is lightweight and confidence inspiring in all circumstances, exactly what all riders would like from their motorcycle, irrespective of engine size. Whether that's flicking from left to right on tight and twisty scenic routes, overtaking traffic on faster A roads, or tackling rough off-road terrain, the 390 Adventure excels. While the 390 Adventure is marketed as KTM's entry-level adventure bike and is positioned to be accessible in every marketplace, there doesn't seem to be much entry-level about it. It feels proper in every way. That's not to say that KTM's larger capacity adventure bikes aren't more premium, but it's just that the 390 holds its head very high, not only against its competitors, but alongside its bigger brothers too. It just feels right in relation to what it's intended to be, and that's a massive compliment. It's got a great TFT screen, good quality adjustable WP suspension, it's got good Continental TKC 70 tyres, good brakes, and in terms of build quality, the 390 Adventure punches way harder than it has any right to. For me, it looks really sharp too. With typical KTM lines, it's purposeful and it's got a commanding riding position. Riding the bike on the road, the 44 horsepower 390 single cylinder engine is fantastic. There were moments I really had to remind myself that I was only riding a smaller capacity single cylinder machine. It feels really eager to go and only runs out of puff at higher speeds. It's a high performance motor that definitely embodies the KTM ready to race theology. It was a joy to ride on our naggery Lake District passes, flicking it from left to right and maximising the power on offer. While it might lack the outright power of a bigger machine, it definitely makes up for it in character. Whichever KTM bike I ride, they all somehow miraculously do the same thing. They make you want to pull a wheelie, do skids and just put a massive grin on your face. In fact, the 390 Adventure does that more than any other adventure bike I have ever ridden. The handling is also fantastic, and I am so glad that KTM opted for a 19-inch front wheel for this bike. There is no compromise in the handling, there's great tyre choices available, and I just think that they're an excellent choice for adventure bikes off-road. I actually decided to soften off the compression on the front forks, and that just made the ride that little bit more comfortable. In line with how adventure bikes are marketed, we wanted to push the 390 Adventure a little bit off-road. And when I say push it, basically we took it on some of the roughest, legal trails that we have here in the Lake District, with big sharp rocks coupled with steep inclines and steep declines. This is generally terrain that I have tried and failed on with larger adventure bikes, and we normally reserve these trails for our 701 Enduro or something smaller. Within about 20 metres up our first trail on our off-road day, a grin ensued that didn't drop the whole day. What a brilliant day's riding, and what a brilliant motorbike. I would go so far to say that the 390 Adventure is the most off-road, confidence-inspiring adventure bike I've ever ridden, and I'll hang my hat on the idea that 95% of regular riders would be more comfortable and be more capable on this bike than any other adventure bike on the market. Will it run out of ground clearance? Well, only on the occasion that you're not careful enough with your lines. Will its suspension bottom out after a big jump? Well, possibly. But to labour the point, 95% of adventure riders wouldn't take their long travel suspension and heavier adventure bike on the kind of terrain that we were doing. So it's a moot point. I mean, your GS might have longer travel suspension, but I will run rings around you on the 390 Adventure. It's the kind of bike that you can confidently point at pretty much anything and it'll give it a real good go. The 390 Adventure impressed me so much. I don't see it as an entry-level bike. I just see it as a great machine capable of anything that you throw at it, irrespective of rider age or experience. I had no preconceived ideas about the bike before I rode it, nor did I read any reviews. But what I will say is that if you are to fully appreciate the 390 as an experienced rider, you have to open your mind a bit. Riding it isn't about the bike dominating your riding experience, dictating where you go by its size or overwhelming you with power. Riding it is about what you want to do as a rider, where you want to go, and the 390 being that vehicle for taking you there. Now, when I think adventure, I want to remember the places I went, the views I saw, and the feelings of achievement when I get to the top of the mountain. Adventure belongs to the rider, not to the piece of metal underneath you. So what are the downsides? Well, it's a really difficult bike to criticise, and whatever criticisms are made need to be seen through the lens of where the bike sits in the marketplace and the way it's priced. We didn't have the bike long enough to comment on reliability, but it was faultless in our hands. Therefore, I'm really struggling to call out anything, as it's just brilliant. But if it was my own personal bike, there's a couple of things that I would change. Firstly, I would either remove the windscreen entirely or I would get a taller one. Unfortunately, the current offering simply blasts wind directly at my helmet and it creates a massive buffeting effect. I would definitely want to fix this. Secondly, the traction control resets every time you stall the bike, and unfortunately the engine is quite stall happy and turning it back off is a faff. Now this really isn't a problem on the road, But when you ride the bike off-road with traction control on, basically it means that the power gets interrupted when you need it, and it can make it hard to make progress on slippery terrain. I would seek an aftermarket way of disabling the traction control in this setting. Hopefully in future model years, KTM may introduce an off-road mode like some of their other adventure bikes to allow some rear wheel slip. And finally, I would add a stronger sump guard to protect the underside of the exhaust, which is available via the KTM parts book, or a mod to slightly increase the ground clearance. I'd also add some extra engine protection and Barkbuster style hand guards, as I'd definitely be putting this bike on tougher terrain if I owned it. I've really loved my time with the 390 Adventure, and if this is where adventure starts, I am super excited to see where it leads to. So believe it or not, I've been really looking forward to riding the 390 Adventure from KTM. And has it lived up to expectations? Yeah, absolutely. It's blown me away. This little motorcycle has absolutely rocked my world. I can't be more enthusiastic about it. It's been absolutely incredible. From the road day that we did yesterday and some of the beautiful roads that we have and passes that we have in the Lake District, through to some of the rougher trails that we have in the Lake District as well. Some of them rough as toast. They really have been, and the kind of trails that I wouldn't take an adventure bike on normally. Well, this little thing has just ate 'em for breakfast. Absolutely incredible. And that capability that is in this motorcycle, from its on-road ability through to the great and punchy engine, through to the fact that it's done all of the trails that we've done today, is super impressive, especially when you take into account that this is priced and set in the market the way it is. And I think, you know, if you're looking at this motorcycle as perhaps your first motorcycle or your introduction to adventure bikes, or you're just getting into it, I mean, you can't go wrong with this thing. It's absolutely incredible. And I also think at the same time, you know, like I say, this bike has really rocked my world. I've been so impressed by it. I think this might actually suit a lot of guys who want an adventure bike, that want to do the type of terrain that we've been doing, but like me, you perhaps just can't get on with a big adventure bike on the rougher stuff. I think this is going to suit a lot of people too. Mega impressed, and all in all, incredibly difficult to make any criticism of it. Seriously impressive. The bike's been fantastic. The concept of adventure motorcycling is a bit of a subjective one, in my opinion. One person's opinion of what a motorcycle adventure is could be riding right the way around the world and taking 3 to 6 months off work in order to do that. Now, at this stage in my life, that's just not possible. You know, real adventure for me on a motorcycle is about exploring the beautiful roads that we have in my locality, about doing and riding the rougher trails that we have, and really taking in the awesome scenery and getting your heart rate going. That for me is what motorcycle adventure is like, or is at this point in my life. and this little bike has totally facilitated that. Also, the KNOX gear has been fantastic as well. I literally don't know what I'd have been doing without wearing the kit that I've been wearing. Well, in fact, I do know what I'd have been doing. I'd have been having heat stroke and falling over somewhere in a pool of sweat. But the Urban Pro kit has just been fantastic. Luckily, I've not had to use it in vain, and I haven't crashed this bike so far yet, but there is always the way down back to the van. But the kit has been fantastic. So look, really hope that you've enjoyed this piece. I have to say, this is probably one of the most favourite pieces that we've ever put together from a riding and production point of view. So I really, really hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, please comment, please check out the KNOX range, and we'll see you next time.